if you take care of your equipment, it'll take care of you. And if you don't, it'll schedule the maintenance for you.
Hey, everybody. It is your host, Ryan Deemer. Welcome to another episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast. As always, our show is brought to you by none other than Skid Steer Nation. Visit us over at skidsteernation.com. See our complete line of attachments. All of our attachments are built by family-owned American manufacturers. They have more pride in the quality of product they put out and care a little bit less about that extra profit margin those large corporations like to squeeze out of everything. We have vetted all the manufacturers. We have interviewed them. We have tested a bunch of their products. They are built to your standards. You will be happy with the results. They will save you time, make you more money, and give you just good peace of mind that you're buying the right quality products from American manufacturers. So visit skidsteernation.com to see our line of attachments. Excellent. Well, now let's get on with the purpose of the show. Today we have Greg Meyer. He owns a company called MTS Tree Services. He's in Royal, Nebraska. He's been doing this for quite a while. He's also been playing with TikTok, and he actually had one video hit over 1 million views. So we're going to chat on that a little bit. Greg, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Brian. Hey, thanks for having me. So I'm pretty honored to little guy from Nebraska can get some attention.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the little guys in Nebraska work just as hard as the big guys in Texas. So you deserve it.
Yeah.
So MTS Tree Service, like, what were you doing before you started this business, and how did you evolve into saying, I'm going to go do this full time?
I kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. I started out as a automotive mechanic by trade. That's kind of my background. I went to school as a auto technician, and I worked as a mechanic since I was 14 years old, working my summers and stuff like that. So I had a pretty big background of that, and I ended up getting burnt out on it after college. And I come back to the farm kind of looking for stuff to do, and just dad was kind of trying to keep me busy, I think. And me and him went together on a machine to start clearing our own pastures. And that was kind of my job coming back to the farm, was clearing our own pastures of cedar trees and stuff. So we ended up doing that for a year or so. And then the neighbors and stuff started catching on to it and seeing what we were doing and how things were looking, and kind of seeing the benefits of the demand of getting rid of these trees. And it snowballed out of that. Neighbors started hiring me, and pretty rapidly after that, we started growing, and I started doing it as a commercial service, and the LLC was formed and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's been a growth every year since then. So I started the LLC was formed in 2014. I was 18 years old when I bought the first machine. So, and I'm 30 now. So we've been doing it 10 or almost, well, it'll be 11 years if you would count the year before the LLC. So that's all I've ever done, since getting out of college, is doing this. So
that's
I
awesome.
hit it running.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so the idea of being a land clearing company really just came because you were doing it for your own family farm, and then the demand and the need for that same service was in your area. So you didn't even think about offering other services. You just want to stay focused on that land clearing.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I kind of tried to do some diversity stuff, but at the time, I tried to do some, get into the excavation stuff and more dirt work, but that was kind of a captured market already at the time, and I wasn't my main focus and my expertise was in the land clearing side of things. So I just kind of stuck with that and spent some money on some dirt stuff, but didn't have a lot of experience and luck getting profit out of it. So I just kind of rolled with what was going good.
Gotcha. And then the name MTS Tree Service, do you do like tree felling and tree trimming and stuff as well? Or
No, I get a lot of calls and asks, people ask to do it, but I'm afraid of heights. So I don't want to do that. I like cutting trees with a machine that's got air conditioning, and it's a pretty good deal. It's pretty cushy what I do. So
yeah, I guess that was my next question: is how many calls do you field for tree service work and not land clearing, but just because of the name of your business?
It'd be a bad month if I don't have 2 or 3 calls, and I don't advertise for it. I guess people just see the name and hey, I got this tree in my yard, and I'm like, I'm going to stop you there. I don't do that. It's probably at least 3 or 4 times a month somebody asks me about it.
Have you found a local tree service that you could refer those leads to and kind of ping
Yeah,
back and
I
forth
send some.
where projects that are bigger than he can handle gets thrown your way and vice versa?
Yeah, no, it's a good network. All the tree guys kind of work together. I send. I wouldn't really call them like subcontractors or anything like that. I don't profit out of it. We just it's like if whatever they're doing doesn't suit them and it suits me better, we just start throwing jobs to each other. It's a good deal. So
Yeah.
but as long as the customer's getting taken care of or they have another, company to talk to, if you give them a good lead, then they're happy. So
Gotcha. And then I noticed like 6 years ago, you had was it your brother or brother-in-law kind of start doing some graphic design and some marketing for you?
well, that was actually my sister did. My sister did some. Yeah. So yeah, she started doing a little bit of that, and I really don't advertise much, but the some of the just flyers, you put up in gas stations, she did that stuff for me. So
Do those work for you in your area?
uh that's kind of tough to say. I mean, I didn't do like the ripping tab one, so you don't really have a visual idea of how many people took that from that. You can go to the gas station or whatever and see how many tabs are left, if it's actually generating people to call. But I figured that, if I did those, people would just, throw away the flyer when it was all ripped off and you didn't have a number on it anymore. So I just did like brochure flyers and just kept them up there that they'd stay, or put cards up there. And I've tried to follow back and ask people where they heard of me, but honestly, most of that stuff came from social media, like the Facebook and stuff. So, and then most of that was honestly the younger generation, like my millennial age group.
Yeah.
They saw the Facebook videos and showed their dad or their grandpa or whoever that didn't have Facebook. They're like, "Hey, check this out." Most of them are like, "My grandson or my boy showed me this video of your Facebook page." That's most of what feedback I've got from my advertising I've done. So
No kidding.
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So while we're on the subject of like social media and videos and advertising and all that, like you're pretty active on TikTok.
I it's a love-hate with TikTok a little bit. I mean, I thought it was kind of a dumb deal when it first came out, and I refused I was going to get it. But it's an interesting platform of meeting people. It's a wide variety of different people. That I don't know if it's the algorithms or something, but you get a whole different spectrum of people than what's like Facebook or Instagram is promoting. So you get people that are like Facebook and Instagram is kind of geared towards what you're looking for, like your interest or whatever. TikTok finds people that have no idea what you're doing, and it's like, hey, maybe you'll find this interesting. You don't even know what it is, but that's how that one video went pretty viral for me. It's creeping up on 2 million views now, actually.
Yeah, I saw it was 1.7 million today when I looked at it.
Yeah. So,
and just for a reference for all the listeners out there, Greg's basically got a promo video of him with his disc mulcher cutting and shredding trees, as they work in seconds. And it's a really well edited video. It's not made with a cell phone. This is something I think. Did you work with a manufacturer for a promo video? Is that where that content came from?
Actually, the video that's on TikTok was from my cell phone, but I did do like 2 weeks later a promotional video with Quick Attach out of Minnesota. So
gotcha. But the video that you actually have in there, you did a lot. You did some editing, added sound.
Yeah,
it's not just like, hey, I hit record, I got done, I uploaded it.
Right. Yeah.
There's a little bit of work on the editing on that, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's it's a good angle and a good view of watching that tree get cut and get shredded down, and especially people outside of our industry that don't work around this stuff.
Yeah,
it's enamoring to watch that happen.
Right.
They can't believe there's a machine out there that can do that. It's
right.
I mean, even me, like I rented a 16-inch or 12-inch wood chipper and I threw a 10-inch tree in there, an oak tree, and it was gone in 30 seconds. And I was like, how in the world can they make a machine that can shred a tree that fast. Like, it's still baffling, even when we do the work around that, some of the equipment that we see out there.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a pretty aggressive machine. So, I mean, there's not too many jobs out there that give you the adrenaline rush of every day running a disc. I take it for granted a lot of times, and I'm so used to it. I've been running this type of equipment for forever. And then you show it to somebody that it just totally baffles them what it can do to a tree,
Yeah. Yeah. Those disc mulchers are extremely, extremely aggressive. I remember we were on site. I was doing some drone video footage for a local contractor here because he had a disc mulcher and was trying to really promote it for land clearing. So I was parked on the right side of the road. The field was on the left side of the road that he was working in. And he was a minimum of 150 yards away from the road. And he caught, I don't know if the mower was at the right angle or what it was, but he caught an old car rim that was laying in the field. It shot it 150 yards over the road and cleared my truck by another 20 feet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're violent.
But yeah. I mean, that's a 20-pound piece of metal, and it threw it 160 yards plus. I thought for sure it was going to land dead smack in the middle of my hood.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, get hurt, or some people have been killed every year. I work with a lot of these different manufacturers, and, it is a sad thing that somebody was sold an attachment without a ballistic door, and that's a big one that gets people hurt, or, not using it in the correct situations where something like that happens. It's damaging to property or whatever,
Yeah. Do you find that you run into that a lot? I know the guys with the drum mulchers do too, but like the property owners like, no, it's all clear out there. And then you get out there and you either run into a barbed wire fence or a stack of metal or.
Yeah, it's probably a little more damaging to the drum mulchers hitting foreign material than the disc mulchers, especially like wire and stuff, just the way that works. You can wrap up a lot of fence or barbed wire or trash really quickly through that drum mulcher rather than the disc mulcher. It tends to clean itself out rather than, wrap stuff up. But I've like mostly my problem now. I work in, like smallest acre jobs or 200 to 300 acre pastures, or up to, I do pasture jobs up to 3,000 to 4,000 acres at a time. And there's nothing but pasture ground. So, I mean, you don't find a lot of that stuff. So I'm in the right conditions to run those disc mulchers. But right now, my biggest thing is my machines are getting old enough. Stuff is falling off of them. Just the other day, I had a bogey wheel. Well, this was 2 days ago. We had a bogey wheel fall off one of the ASVs. Just a fluke deal. I don't know. It's the bolts broke or something, but operator was running it and he slung that set of bogey wheels. It was, 4 sets of bogey wheels on the ASV undercarriage went through that disc mulcher and broke a couple teeth, and some of the holders got bent or whatever. But I mean, we can't find half of it was easily a 40-pound piece of cast metal, and launched it. Who knows where it's at? I mean, can't find it, but nothing, little pieces of it.
So you talked about employees. Like, how big have you grown your business since you started?
I started with one machine, and me and my dad ran the 2 machines, and my dad's still helping me today. He's 72 years old, and he's been a part of it since day one. But labor is the hardest thing to find, especially in my area. I just don't have a lot of people in my area in the workforce that are available. And I think that's a common thing across the whole world anyway, trying to find labor right now. But I've got 5 machines that could have operators in them, but I'm jumping around from different machines, per tailored to each job. So sometimes I don't need to use the excavator or whatever. So some stuff's always sitting. I really need some more employees is what I need to do, but just to keep things moving.
So what's your employee look like now? Do you have like a couple full-times or all part-time?
I would consider my dad is a semi full-time guy, but I do have one full-time employee that's here as much as I need him. And then what's actually worked best for me, I have probably half a dozen different guys as part-time guys or seasonal people that I can call on and do weekend help. A lot of guys have a Monday through Thursday job, or they've got the weekends available. Then we'll try and just line stuff up to do, the weekend work. But yeah, those guys seem to be the best solution for me, just because we have such a flexible, delays with weather. So like rain days like today, we're not out working. It's too muddy. So how do you ensure a full-time employee, a stack of 6 guys, guarantee that they're going to get paid on a day like today? It's not economical for me to do that. So that's a really big struggle for me, is trying to figure out that balance, because I'm at the point where I need to probably stop buying machines and invest in people and figure out how to make that work better. So you got to have the employees to make it work. So I don't know. That's a big question for me. I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah, I think, and you are not alone. There's so many business owners out there that go through this same maturation process of, when's it right? How do you do full time? How many people do we need? How do we invest in these people the right way?
Right.
And while the framework, I think, is similar from business to business, like, you have to build your own specific plan.
All right.
So when we work with clients, we find it's very valuable, very, very valuable, to make sure that you're not putting out like a, hey, help wanted, must know how to do this, because that's all. And then pay rate is this price. Because what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I'll exchange money for your knowledge, but you have no idea if you guys are similar in values, similar in work style, or nothing. So then you bring in an element of oil and add it to water. Right. And then everybody gets frustrated. Nobody's working up to speed. So we find that it's better to like really make sure that who you are as a business, the values, the mission statement's extremely clear, so that when you promote to people like, hey, come join our growing team. We're a bunch of men with values in XYZ. We like to work hard, play hard, take care of each other. And you want to you almost promote the community instead of the job. Because if you can find people that fit your community, you can teach them the nuances of the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think too many business owners get caught up in hiring for experience.
Right.
Than design.
Yeah. No. Well, it's kind of almost an unrealistic expectation too, because I've never, I have zero business backgrounding, and I've learned a lot when I started doing this and started needing to hire people. You expect your employees and the people to be running the machine to gain your precision and your operating techniques and stuff like that, and expect them to be a mirroring image of you and what you do. And you start asking them on the jobs, like, why'd you do it that way? And it's like, oh, well, I did it this way. And you find out his way worked too. It just wasn't the same. So it was a really tough adjustment for me to not micromanage people. And it was better off for me to let people learn on their own time and just let them run a machine for 2 hours and let them figure it out. Otherwise, you're sitting there hounding them and critiquing them, and it stresses them out. It's just not a good deal. But
no, absolutely. So what we found works really well for that is to take a few minutes before you start the project, do a walkthrough with the employee. Here's the expectations of the finished product. Here's a few areas that might be of concern that we need to keep an eye out on.
Yeah.
Here's the process. Like, what's your process that you see, you think you're going to attack this with, and then kind of use it as a learning to be like, okay, that will work. Go ahead and do it. Or that would work, but this way we found in the past works faster. We can save 2 extra hours getting this project done. So if we do step 2 before step 1, we'll actually be ahead of schedule. And then kind of using that as training, and then let them go in and go do the work and not micromanage them.
Right. Yeah. And when a lot of our contracts that we do now, you have to follow a specification to what you're doing. So, I mean, it's written in black and white what you're expected to do. And, it's all got regulations. So it's pretty easy to tell them, here's your copy of this, and you got maps and directions and stuff like that of what you're going to accomplish on each job. So, and every one of them is different with landscape and stuff too. So, I mean, it is a very good thing to have a briefing, before work starts every job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then I think was as important as that briefing before it is, I think the briefing after is even more important, because that's when we get that feedback of what went right, what went wrong.
Yep.
And then we can go back and say, oh, okay, we need to change how we start a project in this area a little bit so we can be more efficient moving forward. I think the
Right.
feedback's almost more important than the planning.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Now, and a lot of that's gets inspection, and if you don't do a good enough job, you got to go back and fix it. So it's
Your cost.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you make sure you do it right the first time, and you're pretty thorough. So
yeah. So how does the business incorporate into your personal life?
that's an even tougher question than the employee question. Balance is a hard thing to come up with, and I've got two kids. I got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So, or 2-year-old and 5-year-old, excuse me. And yeah, it's tough having kids and making balance time for that. When I first started, it was pretty gung ho. I mean, you worked sun up, sundown every day of the week, and you run yourself pretty ragged. And now you got other people depending on you, and having a wife that wants to see you and stuff like that. You learn pretty quickly that you got to make some time. And instead of trying to work 24/7, you kind of I had to learn to make myself transition this into a business, and shut off my phone and start making my customers call me during business hours. And some still don't, but I ignore them. If they got something they want to say to me, they can call me during business hours. If it's a Sunday and I'm spending time with my family, that day I dedicated, I'm not going to talk to you. You can pick a different day, kind of thing. And just making myself not be so available, but not ignoring them, or sending them a text message or something, just say, hey, I'm busy today with the family, I'll talk to you on Monday, something short like that, instead of killing an hour or two on the phone. Or just making a balance out of that was difficult. But I mean, I feel like I'm doing a better job at it, but don't ask my wife. I mean, she probably would appreciate if I did some more time, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I find that I don't know about you, but I find that I get out of balance very easily. So I'll either get fixated on like my relationship with Tracy or like time with my friends, and then I neglect my business, or vice versa. Yeah. And then if I start focusing on my business too much, not only do I neglect my relationships, but I start neglecting my health. So I don't work out, I eat crappy. Yeah. So I've actually got like a little pie diagram in 4 quadrants of health, wealth, relationships, and business. And I fill it out every morning and just kind of shade how I feel on a scale of 1 to 10, just so I'm cognitive and aware.
That keeps yourself honest that way.
It keeps myself accountable that way. So I never get too far off track, right? So if I'm like, man, I'm like a 9 in business right now, I'm like a 3 in relationships, I should probably cut out of work an hour early today and not be distracted, but have dedicated time with Tracy.
Right. Yeah.
And I just find that really helps me, is like, I could get fixated on one thing very easily. So I have to have something to make me aware that, hey, life's not about one thing. It's about all of it.
Right. No, that's a big struggle too, trying to figure out that balance.
And you're going through that maturation phase now, it sounds like, from your answer, of like transitioning from a job to a business.
Right.
You know, and even though you own the equipment and people pay you money and all that, like, you're the one doing the work. So you don't get paid if you don't work. So that
I think some of that's come easier too. I mean, it took a really, really, really long time to get to that point. But, when you're first starting a business, you want to be so successful. You don't want to miss an opportunity, and you're just trying to get your name out there. And it took 10 years to get to that point that I'm feeling comfortable to not answer every phone call the minute it comes in, because I don't want to have a miscommunication or something like that to lose a job opportunity. And I'm not as hungry, but, I'm just being more selective on what I'm doing.
Yeah. I was the same way. Like, we bought our first business. My brother and I bought our first business when I was 25 years old and he was 32. And it was a live music nightclub downtown. We were open till 4 a.m, had bands 3 nights a week. And I came from that industry all through college working in it. And then he decided to be my partner in it. I asked him to do that. And what I found is that I micromanaged him in addition to my employees. Like, 'cause I'm like, I'm the one that knows how to run this business. I want it done this way and that way and that way. And it actually eroded our relationship. And when we closed the business 10 years later, like we didn't speak for like 6 months. Like we were like, we just needed a break from each other. And then when I was running a manufacturing company, he was transitioning work things. And he's like, I'm like, hey, I got some projects. If you want to make some extra money and come do some engineering drafting for me and some print development. And he ended up doing that. And then he started doing sales and he ended up staying with the company that I was running. And it worked out well. And what I learned from the first time working with him to the second time is give him a directive of the end result and don't worry about his process, because I will never agree with his process. It's different. Like we're just opposites. So I learned a lot from that. And then when I started Skid Steer Nation, I started it with in mind of what tasks do I need to do and what tasks can I train somebody else to do?
Right.
So from day one, that was the mindset. So whenever something comes up on my plate, I'm like, is this something I have to handle or is this something I can delegate to our team members?
Right. No, that's a good deal. Yeah. I mean, my wife does a lot of my office work and stuff. So that's really been nice the last couple of years that she's been able to help me do a lot of the office work and the billing and the writing the checks and stuff. And
yeah,
I can keep my focus out in the field and keeping machines running and stuff. So that's a huge deal.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what's the vision for the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years?
Well, just last week, I bought one of my subcontractors' companies out. So I expanded again just last week. I bought some bigger equipment that he had. I bought another tire machine and some supplementary equipment. So I'm kind of expanding on that side of the stuff. But I'm hoping to keep doing that and find some more employees, continue working more locally and doing a little less traveling. One thing I'm actually really proud of is I've been working with a company in Minnesota selling the wear parts through Grusek, is a German company, and then Crushing Mechanics. They're all based out of Two Harbors, Minnesota. So we've been selling as an independent sales rep for the wear parts. So I'm selling a lot of the teeth for the mulchers across the country to different contractors just like myself. And I'm hoping to get a little bigger into that. I'd like to see more tooth sales and I like to be a part of the manufacturing of this stuff to see how all this is made and the learning curve of being around smarter people like the engineers and do this testing. And I gain a lot of information. That's fun for me. I mean, that's my hobby, is doing that stuff. So
yeah, I will guarantee you right now, there's at least 10 people listening to this podcast that disagree with you and do not think an engineer is a smarter person than them because they've used equipment that's not designed right. The function didn't fit the form.
I know, but you gotta find the right engineers. They're not all bad.
No, I mean, I think engineers are great. Like we worked with a lot of them, but I always made it a point to take them out in the field.
Yeah.
So that they can actually be around the equipment being used. Because a lot of these guys sit at a computer. Like the first time I opened up the hood on I don't remember what car it was, and I couldn't find, I don't remember what I was looking for, but like the design of the engine compartment didn't fit you to do any work on the car at all. And it's like, who designed this? You know?
Yeah.
Like they obviously don't work on an engine.
Been pretty fortunate that I've got to do a lot of that field work with these engineers.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a unique opportunity to voice your opinion, because I don't know much about the engineering spectrum of how it works and the mechanical side, the number side that they're good at, but they value my opinion is the the amount of hours we can put on them and how it works in our landscape. I know what works for me doesn't always work everywhere, so I have to stay optimistic about that, or an open mind. What works for me isn't going to work everywhere else, but I mean, the longevity of the machines and the basic performance and stuff like that, that's been a big thing for me to it's a proud thing that some of my ideas from just the experience I have of running this equipment is valuable to a manufacturer that's going to put something out for the whole world. That's a big deal.
It is. I totally agree with you on that. I mean, it's a testament to your time of service, sticking with your niche and understanding the needs of other operators and owners like yourself. And then
Yep.
there's that pride and value of somebody recognizing in you and then respecting you enough to get your input. So it is it is an honor. You should be grateful for that.
Yeah, I definitely am. So
yeah. One thing I always like to talk about is like we ask on the survey is like, what's a specific fail or setback that you've experienced that taught you a really big lesson that sticks with you every day? You talk about like underbidding and then buying lemon equipment.
Yeah. Oh, I think kind of everybody in business is going to go through that. You know, you learn pretty quickly in their early years of business, and where my estimates and bids are somewhat more unique than most of the people in the country is we're doing such a variety of different tasks. Uh, it's almost impossible to try and count how many trees are across 1,000 acres, or there's not a consistent basis for the bids. So I learned really, really early that if you underbid something, you don't make any money. So, I mean, we had a few learning curves of that. You know, you're under contract, you had to do the job, and you had to get it done. Otherwise, you wouldn't get another opportunity to bid out there. So you learn to bid really quickly and figure out a way to make sure you're making enough money on your jobs to cover everything.
How did that affect your cash flow and your ability to pay bills back then when you misquoted?
You know, it wasn't as bad for me as it could have been, but I've always been pretty good with my financials. I didn't do that very often. So that was like, there's only a few times that I really hurt myself where I was never like paying to do a job, but it was like, man, I missed out on a bunch of money that I could have got on this deal, and it's like, this didn't turn out. You're always thinking of your hourly rates and what you're trying to get on your hours of your machine. And like, okay, I've never had a situation where I paid to do somebody's work, but it's like, okay, I had a bunch of breakdowns on this job. Where's that money going to come from? This job didn't produce enough to cover the breakage that happened or the maintenance that you had to do. But it just made you sick. You don't like that feeling. There's no worse feeling of doing a job that you're not making money on.
Yeah.
So
giving your time for free.
Yep.
So you talked about like the hourly rate and all that. Are you pretty dialed in as far as what each machine costs to operate per hour?
Yeah, you kind of got to have a breakdown of everything, and everybody's situation is going to be different. I mean, one guy could have the same exact machine as me, and he had more cash to put down on it.
Mm-hmm.
His financial situation is totally different, but everybody's got to do their own breakdown of what they have to make. But I think you should almost stay with an industry standard and kind of, let me reword that, but I'll say, look at your contractors around you, your competing people, kind of what they're at. Nobody likes the underbid guys. Don't try and be hungry, because their financial situation is different than yours, and just do what works for you and do quality work, and just, stick with your price, and people will pay for it. Nobody likes somebody being too cheap, because, the cheap guy usually ends up going broke or selling out, because value yourself as a high enough value that you're going to stick around for a while. Because I'm not in business to do it for the fun. I want to stick around for a while.
Nope, absolutely. Yeah, we talked to so many business owners that they haven't calculated out ownership costs per hour. So like, they're like, what should I charge? And I'm like, what are your costs? Like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, it's hard to figure out how much money you need to stay afloat if you don't know how much you're paying out.
Right.
So
there's a lot of variables to think about. You're breaking down from what you got to have for your payments, your payment, the guy in the seat, and your maintenance and your fuel costs. It's not that hard to really break it down to figure out what you got to do.
Nope. And actually, the best tool that I've found, because I was actually trying to create one for guys we work with, and it was just, I'm not a spreadsheet formula guy, so I was struggling with that. But I found that if you Google search Case machine total cost of ownership, Case has a really, really well-built calculator for you to put in the machine type, excavator, dozer, wheel loader, skid steer, whatever, purchase price of the machine, money down payment, then you can figure out the interest paid. So I go to another website called Bankrate and go, hey, we took a loan for 80 grand at 6%. Total interest paid was this. So you calculate that in there. And it actually asks for, diesel consumption, cost in the seat. So it actually breaks out into multiple areas, like what your hourly rate, what your hourly cost is for that machine with an employee, with maintenance, with fuel and all that.
Yeah.
And it's probably the
that'd
best.
be great.
It was such a good tool that I quit trying to figure out how to make one.
Oh, well, yeah. That'd be great if people knew about it. I never heard about it.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot easier than trying to figure it out.
When we post this, when this podcast goes live, check the notes below, like the description of the podcast, and we'll make sure we have the link to that. But otherwise, just Google search Case total cost of ownership machine calculator, and it'll pop up.
Awesome.
So it works out really well for you to get a really good grasp on, hey, this machine's running. It's a minimum of $73 an hour with the operator, or $100, like whatever machine and your costs are. So, because the last thing you want to do is bid a job at, let's say it breaks down in your head to $150 an hour. Then you find out you're at $130 an hour in expenses because you're high on the interest, high on the cost, high on the operator.
Well, and I think the most expensive cost is, you got to look at your long term, especially with skid steers. The depreciation of value, especially in what I'm doing, they depreciate so quickly. I mean, it's extremely hard to get over the depreciation curve to make sure you're still being profitable and rotating equipment in and out of your operation before you start having major problems.
Yeah. So. No, that's a big one too. Yeah. And I always tell guys like, hey, you want to get a good price on a skid steer to start doing dirt work, go talk to the guys that's doing land clearings. You're going to get a good machine. And it doesn't have to be brand new and hard to do grading and dirt work. Like you can go get a mid-hour machine for a good price, because you guys do, in the grand scheme of things, you abuse that equipment.
Oh yeah. I can't think of anything worse than a tree machine.
Yeah. So if somebody was starting a new business in the excavation industry, whether it's land clearing, grading, site prep work, whatever, what's the number one piece of advice you would give them before they actually purchased a machine and got started?
I think that you got to have a passion for it and love it. You really need to enjoy what you're doing to stay committed to it. If you're not happy doing it, what's the point of being out there? Make sure it's something you enjoy. And I mean, for me, it was being outdoors and seeing the views of what I got to work with, and changing the landscape forever kind of thing. And just be sure you're enjoying it, because everything goes to shit if you don't. Well, blunt way of saying it, but if you don't enjoy it and you're not committed and have a passion, it's just not going to work for you very long.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I can attest to that personally. Self-hand, I've many years where I felt like I was in a prison because I couldn't quit because I owned the business, because I wasn't passionate about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, skid steers break down. You got to have some thick skin to stomach, what you're going to go through, especially if you're running a tree machine doing what we're doing. There's a pretty likelihood that machine will have a problem every week, or, you gotta have a thick skin to go through the traumatic stress of having to fix stuff all the time.
Yeah.
and just be kind of reserved and be saving some money for the unforeseen future of that. Yeah. It's bound to happen.
It's not an if, it's a when, that's for sure.
Right.
So coming from an automotive mechanic background, like, are you diligent in like your preventative maintenance schedule on your equipment?
Yeah, I like to think that I'm over excessive with my maintenance. I do everything else, like your oil changes, at least a third sooner than manufacturer spec or something like that, and like Cat, for example, it's been a while since I had a Cat skid steer, but their oil change intervals were 500 hours, and we were always cutting that in half. Like I've always believed that was too long to go. So we were always at 250 and 200 and stuff like that. But if you take care of your equipment, it'll take care of you, and if you don't, it'll schedule the maintenance for you, kind of thing. Yeah,
I like that line.
Yeah,
I like that line. So I mean, do you believe that you've got many more hours that you've been able to operate without breakdowns because of the preventative maintenance schedule you maintain on all your equipment?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of very daily tasks that I'm particular about with cleaning machines and taking care of things to avoid fires. You know, that was a bad deal. I burned an excavator up a couple years ago. It wasn't because of a debris thing or negligence. It's just something I don't want to go through again out of a lazy choice. You know, so if you're taking care of your machine, you're likely not going to have that kind of issue. So, I mean, it's something I live through that I don't want to have to deal with insurance, and trying to get a machine like that moved out of a job site is, and you know, that was the only machine I had. I didn't have a piece of equipment bigger to move this 60,000 pound paperweight, you know, and so I don't want to have to deal with that again. So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I feel like maintenance is one of those things everybody knows they need to do it, but they're probably only doing half as much as they really should be doing.
yeah, no, I just have to I made a habit of it. You know, you just wake up that morning, you know what you're going to do. I mean, religiously grease your machine. It's the cheapest investment you'll ever have is grease and oil. So,
I literally just got a text message from a manufacturer of a tree puller attachment the other day, and it showed like the it's like an inch and a half inch pin that hinges one of the jaws.
right.
The guy had not greased it in 4 years, and the pin was like so wallered and moon shaped, and the holes were bad. And like and the guy just wrote $10 worth of grease would have saved this guy $1,500 in repairs.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
It is, but like sometimes it just becomes an afterthought,
Yep.
and it really needs to be a priority.
Yep.
So, Greg, you're also talking that you've been doing like some independent sales for a manufacturer of wear parts. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, and like maybe why you chose this company for their wear parts, and how, if customers are interested in learning more about it, what they should do?
Yeah. So, Crushing Mechanics and Wear Parts Solutions. Um, Grusek is a German-based company, and I've been working with them for almost a couple years now. I've been running their tools, their mulching teeth, for several years before I started doing the independent sales with them. Um, the quality of the tools of the European tools, the steel consistency is far superior than 90% of the Chinese aftermarket tools. So I started. I had a love for them for when I was using them in my own contracting business. I mean, there's no bigger testament as a salesman if you're using the product in your own application to what you're selling. So I mean,
Yeah.
I know the tools that I'm selling because I have them every day. I'm using them, and most of that stuff, you know, we've got an attachment that takes the tools, but mainly, you know, that Grusek was an OEM manufacturer for many years before. So we made the original equipment for a lot of these companies, and now, you know, we're still an OEM manufacturer, but an aftermarket price with higher quality. So that's the big kick on the Grusek side of things is, you know, we can put an affordable product out to market that's not Chinese manufacturing or, you know, really inconsistent steel. It's actually really high quality carbide and steel application used in our steel that's only found in Europe. So,
Huh.
I mean, it's been an interesting deal, and we sell Crushing Mechanics side. They sell some equipment, different mulchers and stuff, some Canadian equipment and different things like that. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is the tooth sales. I like to talk with the other guys that are across the world, and it's helped me be a better contractor too, is visiting with these different guys at their different applications and the ground that they're working in, and rocks or sand and stuff like that, their equipment. That's been a big benefit to me learning too. So,
Yeah. And when you say made you a better contractor, is that just because you're picking up tips and techniques on how to actually do the work, or what?
yeah, or, you know, just structurings of their business and what they've done, and hearing their trials and tribulations and different things like that. And a lot of these guys, we're all along the same bloodline. These different contractors. I mean, it's baffling. Where I've got probably close to 100 different tooth clients or whatever, and they're all on the same blue collar work ethic. If everybody wants to succeed, and they're all on the same mentality of work, and it's just nice because it's almost like you're talking to your friend, that you're somebody that's just like you. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think what you're seeing is a side benefit of this, in addition to supplying great parts and making a little revenue, is that you're filling yourself and surrounding yourself with people like you that are either ahead of you or where you're at or a little bit behind you. And you're kind of like built that community, because I've always believed that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're not happy with where you're at in your life, I guarantee if you look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, you're doing the same shit they're doing.
Yeah.
So if you're spending all this time with these operators that are growing and building and structuring properly, then you by proxy, you become a better operator.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. That's cool, man. Greg, I want to be cognitive of your time. I know we've been talking now for, 50 minutes or so. We covered quite a few topics.
Yeah.
I love that it started. So many people do the same path you did. And I think it's so cool. Like, you start doing work for yourself or the family farm or something to that regard. And just by being out, people see it.
Yeah.
And they start asking questions. And then you had the gumption to go, I can make a business out of this.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad it worked out, because I really didn't want to go back to pulling wrenches every day. I do enough of it as so.
But yeah, you're still a part-time mechanic when you own 5 pieces of equipment.
Some weeks it's full-time, but yeah, I can't imagine going back to it, fixing people's problems every day. It's stressful enough fixing my own. So it was a tough one to want to go back to.
Yeah. Well, man, it's exciting to hear where you're at, where you're going. Congratulations on the expansion and the purchase of that subcontractor. Best of luck to you in structuring that and growing that with you. Don't ever forget, you're surrounded by great customers with your business. You're surrounded with great people in the Skid Steer Nation community on Facebook. People always want to help those when they're not afraid to ask for it. So take advantage of your mentors, take advantage of your coworkers, your cohorts. And when you run into issues, don't try to be pigheaded and run through it, because you will run through issues, and you already have, and you've learned. But as you scale, the issues scale too.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm pretty honored. Thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I had a good time, and yeah, I'm really honored that I got your attention. So.
Well, I appreciate it, man. So if you guys like Greg's story, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it. We are launching episodes just about once a week now. We're back on schedule. If you enjoy the way that we discuss and our mindset on how to grow and structure your business, we also offer a consulting/coaching business. Visit groundbreakinggrowth.com. You can learn about the program there, but we will work one-on-one with me, and we will look through and develop. It's a 3-phase project. We'll define your business, we'll profit your business, and then we'll scale your business. So if you're struggling with where you're at and you want some guidance, go visit groundbreakinggrowth.com. You can schedule a call to talk with me direct, and we can try to help you grow your business. Until the next episode, gentlemen, we'll see you next week.